During the Tet Offensive, amidst the hot jungles of Vietnam, a man fought fiercely against the Viet Cong combatants. He also participated in CIA covert operations and served in the special forces against Castro's regime. It seemed unbelievable that the man sitting before Yuzuk, standing just 4 feet 9 inches tall, had lived these experiences. I was the smallest man to serve in the army. I went to Vietnam with the 101st Airborne Division and then to Special Forces School, insisted Richard J. Flaherty. Yuzuk, filled with skepticism, thought that perhaps these stories were Flaherty's way of protecting himself from a world that rejected him. But the narrative stuck in his mind. Driven by curiosity, Yuzuk contacted the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives. To his surprise, they confirmed Flaherty's involvement in several high-risk operations. As Yuzuk began to uncover the layers of this remarkable story, tragedy struck. Just 6 hours after the call, Flaherty was the victim of a mysterious hit-and-run. The timing seemed to suggest a desperate attempt to silence a man full of secrets. Determined to honor Flaherty's enigmatic legacy, Yuzuk embarked on a relentless quest to uncover the secret life of Captain Richard J. Flaherty. Yuzuk soon fully understood the saying, "It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog." The colossal feats of this small man were about to come to light. When Officer David Yuzuk received the news of the accident, he rushed to the scene, his heart pounding with fear. But it was too late. The street was eerily deserted, with no witnesses and no clues about the hit-and-run that had taken Richard J. Flaherty's life. Yuzuk felt a wave of despair and determination. He needed to uncover the truth about the man who had become his friend. Flaherty's life, full of secrets and mysteries, could not be erased so easily. Each passing day, Yuzuk delved deeper into Flaherty's life, uncovering stories of courage and sacrifice. He found people who confirmed Flaherty's incredible exploits, from dangerous missions to moments of great bravery. The suspense heightened as Yuzuk closed in on the truth. He began receiving anonymous threats, warning him to stop his investigation. But nothing could deter Yuzuk. He was determined to reveal Flaherty's true story, no matter the cost. Yuzuk finally understood that Flaherty was much more than his war stories. He was a silent hero, a man who had faced unimaginable challenges and had overcome them all. And now, it was Yuzuk's responsibility to ensure the world knew the truth about the smallest warrior the army had ever known. However, after Flaherty's death, Yuzuk found himself as the man's sole confidant. He received custody of a simple box, filled with Flaherty's personal belongings. Inside that unassuming box were hundreds of documents, yellowed newspaper clippings, and worn-out mementos, each one a testament to Flaherty's extraordinary military service. As Yuzuk pored over the relics of a historic past, he began to piece together the incredible feats of the smallest man to serve in the army. All the while, Flaherty's final whispered warning eerily echoed in his ears, "Don't talk to anyone about this. It would be bad for your career and dangerous for my health." Yuzuk felt an irresistible duty to shed light on the hidden depths of Flaherty's life. There were forces at play determined to keep Flaherty's story buried, but Yuzuk was driven by a deep sense of responsibility, to honor and redeem the life of a man the world had neglected and forgotten. Through the documents and contacts with old friends and family, Yuzuk realized that from childhood, Flaherty had no choice but to become a defiant and aggressive force in the face of a world that deemed him too small to do anything significant. Although Richard Flaherty was fully capable, he was often perceived as deficient from a young age due to his stature. A family member recalled, "People stared at him when he walked through the door. That's why he had to prove he was strong." Harnessing his strength and charisma to counterbalance the perceived weakness his height suggested, Flaherty became a standout athlete in high school. He compensated for his small stature with stellar academic performance, wit, and charm. His school yearbook captured his essence with the title, Richard Flaherty, the Giant Slayer. Flaherty harbored a long-standing ambition to serve in the army, fully aware that his height posed a significant barrier. The armed forces typically rejected anyone under 5 feet tall. But Flaherty was not one to let a mere 3 inches thwart his dreams. He embarked on a relentless campaign, writing letters to the United States Congress, urging them to advocate on his behalf. After years of persistence, he secured a special congressional waiver allowing him to enlist in the Army. However, another obstacle arose. He was too light to meet the weight requirement. Flaherty's persistence knew no bounds. Determined to overcome this hurdle as well, he embarked on a rigorous regimen to gain weight. Days of fortified meals and intense training led him to achieve the necessary weight, finally allowing him to realize his dream of enlisting. His determination and courage did not stop there. During his military career, Flaherty went to Vietnam with the 101st Airborne Division and later joined the Special Forces, where he participated in high-risk missions and clandestine operations. Richard Flaherty was a man who never let himself be discouraged. He spent months lifting weights, determined to gain enough mass to qualify for military service. Despite officially being the smallest person in the U.S. Armed Forces, his tenacity and desire to serve were praised by his superiors. Many doubted his suitability for combat, but Flaherty did not accept concessions. Flaherty was agile and highly resilient, capable of facing immense physical challenges. During boot camp, he never complained about his physical limitations. Even with the extra effort required, he completed all tests and exercises alongside his fellow recruits. While training to become a paratrooper, Flaherty always volunteered to jump first. To ensure his descent matched the necessary speed, additional weights were occasionally strapped to him to prevent being carried away by the wind. In an elite group where thousands of taller men failed to secure a spot each year, Flaherty not only succeeded but thrived, finally securing his place in the prestigious 101st Airborne Division. His tenacity and courage soon led him to the jungles of Vietnam, where he was ready to prove his bravery on a larger stage. In the spring of 1968, American soldiers in Vietnam faced the full ferocity and cunning of their enemy when the Viet Cong launched the Tet Offensive, sweeping through the war-torn nation. Flaherty was in the midst of this chaos, facing unimaginable dangers. He was not just a soldier, he was an inspiration to his comrades. Every mission, every parachute jump, was a new challenge that he faced with unwavering determination. His superiors began to realize that his small stature concealed a giant in spirit. Carl Kane, a newly arrived soldier in Vietnam, will never forget the first time he and his comrades saw Richard Flaherty. At first, they laughed, thinking he was a joke meant to boost morale amid the chaos. But their laughter quickly turned to amazement when they discovered Flaherty would be leading their platoon. With a powerful voice that cut through the jungle noise, Flaherty exuded confidence and a hint of arrogance, commanding respect and unquestioning followership from his men. Navigating through the suffocating jungles at the height of the Tet Offensive, Flaherty exhibited a fearless demeanor that even unsettled the most seasoned comrades. He was relentless and unyielding in combat, charging headfirst while bullets sliced through the dense foliage. Despite sustaining several injuries, Flaherty insisted on returning to the fight as soon as he was physically able. His relentless drive bordered on ruthlessness. His men had to stop him, at least once, from executing wounded Viet Cong fighters. However, this ferocity translated into remarkable leadership. The tension was palpable as the platoon advanced through the jungle in a wedge formation. Mike Nunez, the point man, was drenched in sweat, maintaining constant vigilance, scanning every inch of the dense undergrowth. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by the deafening roar of AK-47s and the menacing whine of rocket-propelled grenades. An RPG round exploded against a nearby tree, obliterating Nunez instantly. They had stumbled upon a well-concealed enemy bunker. Without hesitation, Flaherty ran westward, drawing all the enemy fire toward himself. Bullets tore up the ground near his swiftly moving feet. One struck the heel of his boot, bringing him down. The scene was pure adrenaline and horror. Carl Kane, trying to process what had just happened, saw Flaherty rise, ignoring the pain and danger. He shouted orders for his men to regroup and attack the enemy bunker. Inspired by their leader's courage, the soldiers pressed forward, suppressing enemy fire and gaining ground. Even wounded, Richard Flaherty did not let himself be defeated. He quickly regained his balance, limping the last few meters to the tree line. With bloodshot, dust-filled eyes, he moved side to side, clearing debris and shouting orders for his men to establish defensive positions as hundreds of enemy troops advanced. Surrounded by a superior force of North Vietnamese army soldiers, they were in a desperate situation. At the camp, U.S. commanders frantically shouted orders over the radios, trying to break the siege but to no avail. As night fell, the hope for an immediate rescue faded. What followed was a nightmare of smoke, gunfire, and desperate screams. Isolated and besieged, Flaherty and his men faced overwhelming odds. Despite being wounded, outnumbered, and outgunned, Flaherty maintained firm command. He orchestrated a fierce defense, responding to each enemy attack with relentless counterattacks. When dawn finally broke, the scene was devastating. The smoke cleared to reveal Flaherty and his men victorious, surrounded by nearly 100 fallen enemy combatants, having suffered remarkably few losses. For his fearless command and exceptional bravery under fire, Flaherty was awarded the Silver Star, recognizing his indomitable spirit and leadership amidst terrible adversity. Back in the United States, he struggled to adapt to civilian life. Haunted by his past and shaken by the devastating loss of his girlfriend in a tragic accident, Flaherty roamed the dark and dangerous streets of Miami, as if in an urban jungle. Violence seemed to be the only thing he knew, shaping him into an aggressive and unpredictable man. In Miami, Flaherty became a skilled dealer, trafficking in guns and drugs. His insatiable thirst for action drew him back into the clutches of the American military machine. He re-enlisted as a captain in the Green Berets, plunging into the treacherous world of espionage and special operations. There were many rumors about Richard Flaherty and his time as a secret agent. It was said that he had planned an arms trafficking operation and led a group of anti-Castro Cuban militants deep into a Florida swamp. Flaherty, with his boldness and ambiguous morals, combined with high-level training, was the perfect agent for the CIA's initiatives to contain communism in the Americas and prepare troops for possible confrontations with the Cuban government. Working against secret government agencies and local police proved to be extremely dangerous. In the mid-1980s, Flaherty was arrested for allegedly selling military equipment to civilian militias. His secret career seemed to be coming to an end, but then, a twist of fate occurred. An agent from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, ATF, recognizing Flaherty's value, managed to secure his release. But he didn't walk out of prison for free. Flaherty joined the ATF, diving into undercover operations to infiltrate drug cartels and criminal networks, aiming to bring down their leaders. Although many of his risky missions remained confidential, allegations soon emerged linking Flaherty and a team of ex-military personnel to arms and explosives trafficking for Nicaraguan militants opposing the Sandinista regime. During a high-speed chase through the humid jungles of Nicaragua, Flaherty narrowly escaped capture, although the operation fell apart when two of his companions were captured by government forces. After this close call, Flaherty decided to step away from the secret world, taking on a seemingly quiet role with the United States Postal Service. But the peace was short-lived. By the mid-1990s, Richard Flaherty's past began to haunt him with full force. The cruel acts he witnessed and committed during his military and covert operations careers began to weigh heavily on his mind. Eventually, he left his job at the post office and ended up living on the streets of Miami, a stark contrast to his once disciplined military life. Flaherty wandered the streets of Miami, tormented by memories he couldn't erase. He had been a fearless leader, but now he was lost, battling the ghosts of his past. The nights were long and filled with nightmares, the memories of dangerous missions and morally complex decisions haunting him every moment. Neighbors frequently saw Richard Flaherty at night, sitting under a tree, holding his face and screaming in utter despair. Tormented by insomnia, he was always on high alert. His unpredictable behavior and profound sadness were reflections of the internal demons that were destroying him. The strength that had sustained him throughout his life now seemed to be crumbling before him. The few friends who remained by his side recalled Flaherty's torment over a specific incident during the Vietnam War. He had ordered his men to take down a fellow American soldier who was running towards the Viet Cong with a white flag. This memory tormented him relentlessly. His family tried to intervene, offering him an apartment in hopes of stabilizing his life. But Flaherty couldn't stay put. He sold the property and returned to the streets, driven by growing wildness and paranoia. He claimed that government agents frequently assaulted him, an allegation that could never be confirmed or denied. However, having been deeply involved in numerous covert operations for the CIA and ATF, often skirting federal and international laws and brazenly aiming to overthrow foreign governments, it was no surprise that these agencies might want to keep him under control or even take him out of the picture if the situation worsened. Flaherty steadfastly refused to seek shelter or accept help from the government. Instead, he chose to isolate himself under a tree with a book, battling his war nightmares alone. Feeling betrayed by the U.S. Army and the government, he deliberately chose a life as a wanderer. He lived in solitude for over 3 decades, revealing only fragments of his turbulent past to those who extended a gesture of kindness. This pattern of isolation and suffering persisted until Richard Flaherty met Officer David Uzuk. Initially distrustful, Flaherty slowly began to lower his guard as Uzuk earned his trust. Over time, Flaherty felt a sense of security with Uzuk and began to share his story. This is how the chain of events leading to the creation of his biography, the Giant Killer, the true story of the smallest U.S. soldier Green Beret Captain Richard Flaherty, began to unfold. Through this book, Flaherty's sacrifices and legacy were finally recognized and honored. The book offered him a semblance of redemption, bringing to light the complex and heroic journey of a man who never accepted being limited by his stature. Even so, the mystery surrounding his death still hovered over his memory. 9 years after the mysterious and suspicious circumstances surrounding Flaherty's death, the driver involved in the hit-and-run has yet to be identified or found. The case remains unsolved, and local authorities maintain an intriguing silence about any progress in the investigation. This silence only heightens the curiosity around Flaherty's story and adds more weight to his warning that uncovering the truth could be dangerous to one's health. Flaherty's story is full of twists and emotions. After years of internal struggle and a life marked by battles, both on the battlefield and in his mind, Flaherty found in Uzuk a friend and confidant. Uzuk became fascinated by Flaherty's stories of courage, sacrifice, and determination. Each conversation revealed more about the complex and tormented man behind the secret missions and military operations. Flaherty shared with Uzuk his dangerous operations, moments when his life hung by a thread, and the tough decisions he had to make. With each story, Uzuk felt a mix of admiration and sadness. He knew Flaherty's life had not been easy and that his scars ran deep. The process of writing the book was cathartic for both. For Flaherty, it was a chance to finally tell his truth, to be seen and heard. For Uzuk, it was an opportunity to honor a man forgotten by society, ensuring that his legacy wouldn't be buried with him. However, the publication of the book brought with it a sense of imminent danger. Flaherty always warned Uzuk about the risks of digging deep into his past. Discovering the truth can be dangerous to your health, he would say. These warnings proved more real than ever as the case of his death remained shrouded in mystery. The silence from the authorities only increased the sense of intrigue. The driver who hit Flaherty was never found, and the investigations seemed to have been halted without explanation. This mystery fueled theories and speculations, leaving everyone who knew his story on edge. David Uzuk, now the guardian of Flaherty's memory, couldn't rest while the circumstances of his friend's death remained unclear. He dedicated himself to seeking answers, facing risks and obstacles along the way. Uzuk's determination to find the truth was a testament to the deep friendship he had developed with Flaherty. Even after Flaherty's death, his presence continued to influence those who knew him. The book The Giant Killer became a lasting reminder of an extraordinary man whose contributions and sacrifices would not be forgotten. And as the search for truth continued, Richard Flaherty's story inspired many to recognize that true greatness comes from within, regardless of outward appearances. The struggle to unravel the mystery of his death became one more chapter in Flaherty's already fascinating life. And so, even in death, Richard Flaherty remained a giant, whose story of bravery and sacrifice would echo for many years, reminding everyone that true courage has no size.